The Atlantic was always sold as empty, but it was never truly empty. Before there was a name, there was already a fear, to disappear without a trace. And that is why the first maps were born with elegant lies, because a map is not just orientation, it is also a weapon. In the 15th century, there were routes no one could admit existed, and yet some navigators kept sailing as if they were being pulled. Days without land make the mind invent things, but that was not invention. A dark shadow appeared on the horizon, like a tooth rising from the sea. It was not a continent, it was something smaller, isolated, and precisely for that reason, dangerous. The problem is that when you find land, you also find an owner. The first rule of secrecy was simple: no one writes everything. The second rule was worse: whoever writes too much does not return. But even with fear, someone always draws a minimal sign for the future. And that is how the story of the Azores begins before being the Azores. Because in the beginning, they were just dots, and dots can be erased. There is a reason certain maps have islands out of place, and that reason is not error, it is strategy. An archipelago in the middle of the Atlantic was more valuable than gold, because it was not just land, it was a key to crossing the world. And whoever controlled the key controlled the routes, the cargo, and time itself. There's just one detail: the sea does not respect secrets for long, and that is when the strange reports began that no one wanted to publish. Some spoke of birds appearing out of nowhere like messengers. Others swore that the smell of land came before the land existed. And then came the definitive sign: clouds fixed in the same spot, as if the sky itself were marking an invisible coordinate. The most curious thing is that these clues appear in very old maps, discreetly. And when you put everything together, you notice a pattern impossible to ignore. The islands were there, but they were out of place on purpose. A lie small enough to look like a mistake and big enough to conceal. But a lie repeated many times becomes tradition, and tradition, once official, erases everything that came before. This is where the most uncomfortable part of the story begins. The Azores were not merely discovered, they were controlled from the first stroke, because whoever controls islands controls rest in the middle of the ocean, controls water, food, wood, and the chance to survive, and also controls who is allowed to return and tell what they saw. Yet there is always someone who keeps a hidden copy, and that copy sometimes survives longer than kings and treaties. When we look at certain details, the past begins to speak, and it speaks with a silent sentence: someone was here before. Official history gives dates, but the sea does not obey dates. It delivers clues in the form of wood, rope, iron, and bones. And each of those clues creates a question no one wanted to answer. If the Azores were already on maps, why pretend they were not? The answer is simple and terrifying. Power requires silence, and silence in the Atlantic was more valuable than any treasure. But not every lie survives when time begins comparing documents. And that is when a minimal detail became a crack in the official version. An island too small to attract attention, yet too real to ignore. From that point on, everything changes. It is no longer discovery, it is concealment. And when you understand that, the Azores stop being islands and become evidence. Evidence that the world was sailed earlier than we were taught, and evidence that maps do not show the world, they show interests. The strangest thing is realizing that the lie was there all along in plain sight, and even so, for centuries, no one had permission to see it, until one day someone compared two lines and noticed the fraud. And when the fraud appears, the entire history must be retold. Because what was hidden was not just an island, it was a path that changed Portugal, the Atlantic, and the future of the world. And at the center of that path were the Azores, silent and decisive. Islands that do not shout, but guard secrets the way stone guards fire. And now that you have seen the pattern, it becomes impossible to believe the official version again, because the truth was not lost at sea, it was hidden on paper.